Spirit to us to open our hearts and our minds, that you would hover over us and do your creative work again. We thank you and praise you for the recreating power of your word. Through Jesus Christ. Amen. Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light to the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing with which the water teems, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw it was good. Then God said, "Let us make Adam, man, in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man, Adam, in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating he had done. This is the word of the Lord. So it's not a surprise thing to tell you that ecological issues, the state of the environment, they're in the news every once in a while. It's fair to say that natural scientists, including Christians, agree that the Earth's global environmental problems are real, need to be addressed. And this list includes, and many of these have local implications, this list includes pollution of the air, the seas, the rivers, lakes, and aquifers. This includes destruction of rainforests and other critical habitat. This includes desertification, the deserts encroaching, and soil loss. This includes endangered and lost species of plants and animals and insects and birds. This includes the depletion of the ozone layer. And this includes the increase of greenhouse gases, consequently the harms that it affects on our planet. And so I just want to be clear, my goal today is not to convince anyone of the reality of these problems or that we're facing a crisis, though I think in many respects we probably are. I think you only need to Google the words environmental problems and take your time to read the 200 million or so articles that you will find. Instead, I think it's more my task as preacher to briefly look at the idea that the Bible has this distinctly different teaching on creation and our responsibility to care for it. A lot of people think that caring for the environment and teachings of biblical faith are somehow not compatible. And this has a history, perhaps, come from those both inside and outside of Christianity. Parts of the arguments claim that Christians and the Bible, the Christian scriptures, have more to do with somehow the life to come than the current world that we live in. But can that really be true? Is it true that biblical teaching is against this ideology of responsible care for this environment in which we live? I think over the course of the next 4 weeks, I hope we see that the teaching of the Bible, that Christianity teaches, and the Bible provides probably solid, if not, in my opinion, the very best, both intellectual and moral and spiritual resource for a passionate care of creation and the environment. In Paul's letter to the Colossians, the passage we read earlier for our assurance of pardon, we see that the universe was created and is sustained and will be redeemed by Jesus Christ. In short, since Jesus is Lord of all creation, including the earth, we're to care about it and to care for it. So why is it then that there is so much neglect of this truth even amongst evangelical Christians? I think in part it's because what has encroached is a defective theology of creation itself. It's almost as if our Bibles begin with Genesis 3, right? The fall into sin, Genesis 3, and end with Revelation 20, right? The redemption, the final kind of redemption. But the Bible itself is so much larger, right? It begins with creation, what we just read, Genesis 1 and 2, and it ends with Revelation 21, a restoration, new creation story. So it starts with creation, it ends with new creation. And a whole theology of redemption cannot be confined to those middle two areas. It has to start and end with creation. And it's crucial that Christians understand what the Bible teaches about creation. My apologies if I'm a little bit maybe linear today. That's okay sometimes, I suppose. But I want us to think a little bit through what the Bible has to say about creation being good, first of all, in relation to God. One of the most important things, I think, themes that the biblical scriptures have to say about this is that God owns everything. And that may seem self-evident. But there are certain scriptures that obviously make this very clear, right? The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Or Deuteronomy, to the Lord belong the heavens and the earth and all of it. And Genesis 1, the passage that we just read, announces that God's the creator of everything. And by the fact that he's the creator, he's the owner, right? There's some sort of intrinsic ownership that comes, right? There's a right. Nothing in the entire cosmos, there's nothing in the cosmos that did not come from the creative work of God. God brought it forth. Now, again, it might seem obvious, but we have to say this from the outset. And that is that the earth is the Lord's and not ours. There's this repeated statement, right, that we read in Genesis 1. God saw that it was good. And it shows that somehow God derives pleasure from his own created world. It has this aesthetic quality. There's beauty and a worthwhileness to creation inherent in it. And goodness means that it's well suited for the purpose for which it was made. And what it was made for was to glorify God. Now, I hope you don't find this terribly offensive, but there's a cartoon of God. And God says, I just created a 24-hour period of alternating lightness and darkness on earth. Angel, what are you going to do now? Call it a day. Sorry, but what I want us to see, of course, is that time and time again, God makes this day, right? And he goes through it each of those 6 days. It was good, it was good, it was good. And then we get to the verse 31, and God saw all that he made, and it was very good. Very good. That's the term that God applies to all of creation together, not just the individual parts. Everything together somehow, everything in its interrelatedness has this value of very goodness. The entire system of creation, of course, is valuable, and of course, we don't want to damage that delicate balance. We just talked about the Skeena watershed, right? We don't want to damage that delicate balance which God has so carefully crafted together. Ed Brown is the head of a Christian organization called Care of Creation. He wrote a book called Our Father's World, and in it he writes this: "My biggest reason for caring for God's creation has nothing to do with the extent or the severity of the crisis, the number of people affected, or even the ultimate future of the human race. It has to do with one simple fact. I know the God who made it all, and I love him." Now, I didn't want to embarrass my children this morning. In fact, they're not even here. I could have. But I didn't want to embarrass my children this morning by showing you a Father's Day card. But imagine that I'm holding a Father's Day card. And you know the type, right? It's Happy Father's Day kind of scrawled on the front in some sort of a font. And inside there's some artwork, usually a couple of bottles of glitter glue kind of inside there somewhere, stuck together. You open it, sticks together a little bit. Anyways, you got the picture of a Father's Day card from a 6 or 7-year-old. Now, since it's from my child, it warms my heart and it brings tears to my eyes. Now, if I can place such a high value on something that really, to be honest, has very little intrinsic value, I'm not going to get a lot of money for that card on eBay. If I can if I can value that card highly simply because it's made by one of my children, how much more ought I to value and care for this incredible world that God has made? This world is precious because he's made it. And it represents an excellence and a beauty far beyond anything that any of us could comprehend, let alone make on our own. The second thing to be said about the goodness of creation is that it reveals God. In the surrounding cultures of the day that Genesis is written, and maybe to an extent our own, creation is understood to be by a whole multiplicity of deities, a whole bunch of little gods, a kind of a pantheism, right? And however, the Genesis story and the Christian story, which adopts Genesis 1, we have one single living God who is very personal. And so therefore, creation itself bears witness to Yahweh, makes him known, makes Jesus Christ somehow even known. as we even sung a few moments ago in Creation Calls. Creation reveals its creator. And we encounter